Hey everybody, this is Dustin with the Giant Rocketship. I'm just sharing my screen if you'll give me a minute. And there we go. All right, Dustin Puryear, Giant Rocketship. So every 2 weeks roughly, I like to do a quick webcast on Autotask, walk you through something that you might be having some difficulty with. And let's start off. Now notice I have my Autotask opened up. You can see Rocketship's embedded in there. Um, And what I would like to talk about today, in fact, I was going to have an accounting topic about QuickBooks Online, but I saw a really interesting question, Reddit, I think it was on the Facebook group, and they were asking how to properly track first time closes and auto tasks. Now, you can't do this natively, but you can actually make this work pretty easily. So, what I'm going to do is, and by the way, if anybody can't hear me or they're having an issue seeing my screen, just let me know. But what I have here is a quick diagram of how I'm going to solve this problem. Right. So we want to track first time closes. Now let's define a first time close. A first time close is when you work a ticket and you close it that first time you work it. Kind of obvious. Um, and how we want to track that is whenever a technician creates a time entry, if it's the first one and they close it, well, it's a one touch close, right? If they have more than one entry on it, then it's not a one touch close. And so we need to track that state in some way. And we're going to use a ticket UDF, and we're going to use that to dictate whether or not it is a one touch close. And I'm just using draw IO here. Let me move this out of my way. And I think I'm missing something here. Well, we could set to one entry. So what I would say is if a time entry is created and the status UDF is blank, then we're going to set it to one touch close. Now, if it's not blank, that means that it's already been set to one touch close. We would set it to multi touch close, right? And so what's nice here is, and keep in mind that there also is another setting, which is going to be, it may just be blank. And it's important to understand because when we run our reports, we want to say this is a one-touch close, this or this is a multi-touch or not a one-touch close. Typically, you want to use that for your first tier to understand how effectively they're closing tickets. So let's go ahead and implement this real quick. And I might have this UDF already in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my UDF manager. Here we go. Use it to find fields. And I'm going to go into tickets. And note, you can also do this in task. Let's see if we have this already. Nope. Is one touch close. And you know what we're going to do? I think we just need to make this a Boolean. And so we're going to use a list to mimic a Boolean. Now keep in mind, this value could be blank. It's not going to go update the database, so we need to be mindful of that. So if I look at my diagram, when a technician creates a time entry, check one touch close, check this UDF. If it's blank, then set it to true. If it's not blank, in other words, it's already been set to true, or maybe it's already false, set to false. So this is false. This implies falseness. And this is the only one that is valid. We don't need that. Okay, so these two would be the indicators that it was either there's no touches or there's multi-touch. Okay, good. So now what we're going to do here is we are going to go to our workflow rules. And again, what we're trying to accomplish here is how do you flag a ticket as a one-touch close? So I'm going to go to automation because now we need to create the automation to do this. So I'm going to go to workflow rules. This can take several seconds. I wish they had a little indicator, a little spinner. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set one touch close, set to true. I like to name it my workflow rules like this when possible, just so like I can group them more easily. And so what I want to do is if time is added, let's look again at this. When time entry created, time added, and the field is blank. And by the way, when you create workflow rules, man, just creating a diagram to just work through it can really make your workflows so much smoother and easier to understand. And so let's go look at this UDF. And is one touch close, what do we want? Is blank. In other words, it hasn't been touched yet. Is empty. Then we're going to set it to true or yes. Okay, good. Now, what's important here is that that's only half of it. This is workflow rule 1. To properly branch from this decision, we need is true or a set false, right? So we need a second is 1. And so now we need a, what did I call it? Touch. Now we need to create that second part of that decision or that branch, set to false. And we would know it's false if this value is not blank. In other words, if it's already true, time added by anybody, and criteria is equal to, I can do this, guys, is one touch close is equal to, is not empty. That means it could be true or false. We don't care. But either way, we're going to go to the false state, right? Because if it's true, look what's happening. If it's true, that means we've already we've had one entry. So the second entry must be the second one, right? And so, and then if it equals false, then we have more than one entry. So the next one's false as well. Now we can, well, let's do that real quick. Then I'm going to show you how I would actually do this a little bit better. I don't see any questions. Is one touch closed? And now I'm going to set this to false or no. Now, look, what's going to happen here is this workflow rule will execute every single time you touch a ticket. If that value is true or false, we can prevent that extra logging against our ticket of a workflow rule just by protecting against. So let's modify this. So the way we want to do this, if it's already equal to false, then we know it has more than one entry, so we don't need to run it again. We don't need to set no back to no. And so this just prevents the system logs. You know how you can go look at the system view and you have a bunch of log messages from workflows constantly refiring? Let's just not worry about that. Okay, set to false. Okay, so we've implemented this branch of the question and then this branch of the question. Now let's go test this. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to open up a test demo ticket and let's create an entry. Now, by default, um, you're not going to see that UDF I just created. So I need to go modify that. And so ticket categories, standard. So what's happening here is we're not seeing that UDF field because you have to go add it. And so let's see here. Okay, so let's go try this. So by default, it should be blank, which means that it is not a one touch. That's correct. Now let's add one entry. And if we add an entry, let's say this is a whatever. Glad I could help you on the phone by, right? And so we're going to say we worked a minute. And by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to put that to the chat for me. Okay, cool. So let's give it a couple of seconds. Workflow rules can take a few seconds to run. See, nothing's run yet. This is the only issue with the live stream is that you have to kind of wait on the software that you're dealing with to do its thing. Look, one touch close. So when I run a report where status equals complete and one touch close equals yes, that's all my one touch closes, right? Now, what I want to do next is, and let's refresh this just to see if another workflow rule fires, just to see what's happening. Nope, everything looks clean. Now let's add our second entry. So a second entry, by definition, means it's not a one-touch close. You called back and said it was still broken. I helped you again. I need to do training. I'm horrible at IT. Okay, good. So what we're going to do is add another touch. So what should happen is our workflow rule should look at, it sees time that you created, looks at this UDF field, should notice it's not blank and should now set it to false. And it hasn't run yet. It can take several seconds. And keep in mind, while we wait for the workflow rule to fire, this makes your reporting super easy, right? So to understand the number of multi-touch tickets versus one touch, your live report can say, show me the percentage of tickets where one touch equals yes out of all tickets that are completed. And now you can track it from this moment forward. You cannot track this retroactively without doing some API work. Okay, so let's see what happens. Still hasn't fired. Last time it took like 15, 20 seconds. Normally workflow rules fire a little faster, but we are in their test environment. Still waiting. Now, let's just make sure that we did everything correctly while we wait, because I feel like I should have fired by now. Interesting. I created one and then I created two. And actually, one of the things I do like about a live stream, I prefer to, is one touch is, ooh, I did this wrong. So like, look at this workflow rule. I did do this wrong. So not equal to. Burp, burp. Okay, so that should have been not equal to, because think about what I was saying is like, if it's equal to no, then only fire in that situation. But that will never happen because how can it be blank? How can it be, wait, is not equal to no? That's right. All right, so is not empty is not equal So basically, that just means if it equals to yes. I could have just said yes, honestly. I overly complicated that. So this would have never fired because I had a bug in the workflow rule. So let's go create another time entry. And so now let's see what happens. So is not blank. So what happened? Remember when I tried to add that little extra guardrail so my workflow rule wouldn't constantly fire? That's what was causing the issue. And it looks like I just lost video, guys. I'm still screen sharing, but my camera looks like it just stopped working randomly. So sorry about that. Okay, and so let's see here. You should be still seeing my screen. And oh, here we go. Now it has changed to no because we have another time entry. So there we go. We've solved this, and now you can very easily report for your one-touch tickets. I hope you guys found that helpful. I answer questions that are sent to me. I was actually today going to answer one that was sent to me on YouTube. Feel free to ask questions there. Shoot me an email at dustin@giantrocketship.com. And then I also look at what is happening on Reddit and on Facebook Autotask groups, and I answer questions that look really fun or interesting. Okay, well, Dustin Puryear, founder, Giant Rocketship. We fully automate ticket assignment, dispatch, and scheduling in Autotask. Hope everybody has a good day. Bye.